the world from somebody else's point of view. So we'll talk about egocentrism in just a minute. This is just an example here of identity constancy. Here's a little bit about animism. That little boy seems like he's very excited for the bear, like the bear is going to be also equally excited to go riding in the wagon, right? All right, so egocentrism. This is there's a lot of examples of egocentrism that you can see in little kids. I'm going to push the slides and you'll see what happens here. So if you ask this little boy, hey buddy, do you have a brother? And he says, yes, Jim. Okay. And then you ask him, does Jim have a brother? He says, no, right? He only sees that he has a brother. He's unable to take that perspective and say, Jim has a brother. I am Jim's brother, right? Really shows kind of complex thought. And they just, don't understand this. There's plenty of examples. A little kid, they think whatever's in my head is in your head. What I know, you know. Okay. And so if a little child has ever asked you, remember at the party when, so-and-so did something, and you're like, I didn't go to the party. I don't know what you're talking about. They're like, yes, remember so-and-so did this. They just assume because they remember the events of the party, you must remember it. You have to know, even though you weren't there. They might think that you know what happens in their dreams, especially if you're in their dream, right? And they remember, and then this happened. You're like, no, I wasn't there. That was your dream. They will do things like, playing hide and go seek with a little kid who is egocentric. They just think if I close my eyes and I can't see you, you can't see me. So they could just stand in the middle of the room and just go, okay, come find me. Or they hide behind, a kind of a desk or something, and they still sit there and laugh and, kind of make all this noise because they just think, well, if I can't see you, you can't see me. Okay. So the list goes on about egocentric thought and behaviors of these little kids. Okay, so now we move on to the second stage for childhood, what Piaget calls the concrete operational stage. This one, I think pre-operational is really fun. I think the concrete operational stage is not so fun. And it's because they just start thinking like adults, not fully, but they're getting there. They understand conservation, so they no longer think the big cup has more. They understand, so-and-so's in the Santa costume. They know that, they're just think better, they reason better, they have more logic. Here it says they start to understand basic principles of math. So with math comes logic. Okay, so these kids are just really starting to think a little bit more like adults. I like to call this stage the collector stage. This is where little kids collect things, and marketers have picked up on this, so they sell cards and little toys, and they even say things, collect them all. And so then little kids are like, oh my gosh, I have to collect them all. Let's see, what else? Like, people just collect everything. Someone had told me these are Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I don't know what those are. My age, we had Garbage Pail Kids, baseball cards, basketball cards, Shopkins, or let's see what a little girls collect. I don't even know anymore, Polly Pockets or something. I don't, the LOL dolls and all those things that are real popular right now. Matthew plays Fortnite, so oh my gosh, he has to have every skin. He has to have every, I don't know, whatever all those different things are. So it's just, you know, they've really picked up on that, and they charge parents a lot of money to get all the things for collection. But my older daughter Isabella used to collect rocks, and they weren't even like really pretty rocks. She would just bring rocks from all over that she found. So it doesn't have to be something that you spend money on. You know, this stage or this collection, it brings about some higher thinking. Okay, these kids are able to start understanding kind of these vague terms like rare or common. Okay, they understand if they have something that's rare. They understand if there's one that's very common. It allows them to categorize. It allows them to classify things. It gives them something to talk about with other people who have a common interest. You know, they could even barter and trade, which are skills that are kind of higher thinking. So this is that's what's happening, right, when little kids are doing this stuff. And you know, it's not a bad thing. It can be a little annoying, I guess, but it's good. Vygotsky, just real quick about Vygotsky. Vygotsky was around when Piaget was around, and if you want to think about it, like Vygotsky was kind of the arch nemesis of Piaget. Piaget believed that children acting on the world are going to learn through their own experiences. And Vygotsky came in and said, well, that's kind of silly. You're not going to just, you know, learn physics by playing with, you know, cups and sand. You need to have a teacher. You need to have somebody guiding you and guiding that growth. I don't think Piaget would have really thought that, but that's kind of the opposite, right? So Vygotsky is like formal school, and Piaget was like Montessori school, right? So Vygotsky says we have to teach you, and you have to go in structured, and you have to go in these certain steps. And Piaget was more like, let's allow them to learn, you know, how they want to learn and what interests them. So a little bit about Vygotsky. This right here is every school, every class, every grade that you have probably experienced since kindergarten. So we have this current competence right here, whatever stage or grade you're at that moment. Then you go through scaffolding, which is really just a fancy word for teaching. So they teach you, and then you get to the next level, the potential competence. So this could be first grade, you get taught, and then you move on to second grade, right? Or this could be anatomy 1, you're taught, and then you get to go into anatomy 2, right? So Vygotsky is everywhere. It's pretty much the way we do school and education now. The zone of proximal development. This is an area at which a child is able to learn that makes sense for their developmental, capabilities at that time. Okay, so if you had a little kid down here and they can count, and you want to teach the kid to add and subtract, you need to start with the counting. Teach how counting and counting all together is adding, or counting and then taking away is subtracting, to get them up to that skill of adding and subtraction. You would never want to try and teach a child who's barely at counting how to calculate the volume of a sphere. I mean, that's just so far outside of their zone of proximal development that they'll get frustrated and give up. So you always want to keep people within that zone, so that it's challenging, but it's not overwhelming for them. This goes into a little bit into technically it's ADD. The slide is old. The DSM-5 came out not too long ago, and we call it attention deficit disorder, because all people in this category have attention deficit disorder. Not all of them have the H, not all have hyperactivity. So now how we say it is attention deficit disorder, and they may have a hyperactive component. Okay, but anyways, excessive restlessness, perhaps that's mostly hyperactivity, but easily distracted, yes. Difficulties focusing, yes. It's usually diagnosed in elementary schools, yes. Usually in boys, usually in the United States. ADD is very common to be picked up probably by first grade, most often in boys. Okay. There are many stimulants out there, medications out there to try and help treat this. There are some non-stimulant medications now that are out there. I think it's best for the family to decide, and the doctor, and who they really trust would be looking out for the best interest of the child. I don't like to be skeptic, but you just want to be real concerned with some of the schools trying to push your child to get tested. If they get diagnosed as ADD, that school makes more money. And I hate to be like that, and I hate to think that our schools would do that. But it is a possibility. So I advise, if your teacher or whoever is advising you to get your child tested, I would go outside of the school. I would go to, because they don't have, right, your doctor, your child's pediatrician does not have a monetary interest in whether your child gets diagnosed or not. So talk to them and see what they say. There are probably way too many diagnoses of ADD out there, but that is not meant to discredit. There are some very real cases of ADD as well. And these children can truly suffer. They want to do good. They want to be a good kid, but they just have no impulse control. They have a really hard time sitting there paying attention, and so they get in trouble a lot. It's hard for them to make good friends. Teachers might get really frustrated with them. They might start failing, and so on. And so they start getting labeled, and they start not doing well in school. And if you were just able to treat this child, they can go on and be successful and do really well. So I just say, we have to be a little bit careful with that ADD. I'm going to skip, just like I said, I was going to skip through some of these speech things. Just this is a nice to know. Kids know about 10,000 words by age 6. All right. Also here, there's a lot of over-regularization of rules, right? So like the example here, if I walked, then I must have run and swimmed. So it's very hard for them to pick up on those, the exceptions to the rules. And so they just say things. My kids used to always say, I catched the ball, right? And I would drive myself crazy going, you caught the ball. So just don't be like me. Don't go crazy. You don't have to constantly correct that child. You certainly want to watch, don't embarrass them. Don't try and correct them in front of friends or in a large group. It's not going to do what you think it's going to do. They will eventually pick up on it. They'll eventually pick up on what's the right word to say. Of course, if you're somewhere, with them alone, you could always say, hey, I heard you say that earlier. Remember, it's not catched, it's caught, okay? But just know that they do this. This is just kind of the stage, and it's what happens. They'll learn soon enough, so don't worry. So this starts to get into the social aspect a little bit more of developing children. And we need them to develop theory of mind. Okay, so we need a child to develop theory of mind. And theory of mind starts coming on when they start losing egocentrism. Okay, so theory of mind is understanding that a different person has a different thought process, they have different emotions, they have a different perspective. Okay, and so we really need children to get this and understand this. So there's a couple tests here, again, that you could do with your child. It's not going to cause any problems. And so let me see, I'm going to go back to this so I can show you. Okay, so we have Max here, and he has a bone, okay, and he is going to drop that bone in the blue bowl, and then Max left. Okay, so Max dropped the bone in the blue bowl, and then he left. And now we have Grumpy Cat here is going to take that bone and switch it and put it into the red bowl. Okay, and then Max comes back. All right, and so you can ask the child, where is Max going to look for the bone? If the child is still showing egocentrism, he's going to say, the red bowl, because what's in his mind must be in Max's mind. He knows the bone got put in the red bowl, therefore Max must know that the bone got put in the red bowl. Okay, if he is not egocentric, he's moving on and he starts to understand theory of mind, the child's going to go, he's going to look in the blue bowl. And they like get kind of excited about it because they know Max is going to be confused, right? They know, they understand Max's state of mind, that he's expecting the bone to be in the blue bowl and he doesn't know that it got switched. Okay, when little kids start understanding theory of mind, this is when you start to realize that little kids might tell you certain things. We can call them lies, right? They might start lying to you, or they might start telling you things because they're trying to understand, do you know, or do you know what's in my head, right? Do you, and so that's kind of a funny little stage, right? When they start doing, they ask you things, or anyways, you just kind of start picking up that they're kind of lying or being deceitful, and it's because they're starting to figure out theory of mind. This is kind of a hard example. This is another one, and you could do with a child here. You take a ball or something and you put it in the drawer, and then you ask, the kid's mom to leave or the other person to leave, and then you take the ball out and you put it underneath the bed, okay? And then you ask the kid, okay, when mom comes back in, where is she gonna look? Okay, a little kid is going to go under the bed, right? An older child is going to go, oh, she's going to look inside the drawer. She's going to think it's still in the drawer. Okay, so that's theory of mind. Theory of mind is very important because you need kids, and to develop socially, you need to know that other people have different perspectives, other people have different emotions, other people have different expectations than you do. That's just how society works and how relationships work. So little kids who will maybe develop theory of mind sooner are kids that have older siblings. Right? So an older sibling is going to right away let that little kid know, I don't like that. I don't want to play that, or whatever it may be. Of course, you just have little kids that are just kind of advanced. And sometimes we tend to call these little kids old souls, or that they're just wise beyond their years, because they really start to understand people's emotions way sooner than you would expect. And here we say bilingual kids. And this because if a little kid came up to me, they would know they have to speak to me in English, right? But if they know that grandma only speaks Spanish, then that child from very early on is starting to realize my brain works in English, that brain works in Spanish. And so they're starting to get a unique perspective way earlier than monolingual children. Of course, we can have some problems with theory of mind, any type of brain damage, of course, but here specifically it's saying frontal lobe damage and autism. Okay, autism or autistic kids, or kids that are on the spectrum, have problems with theory of mind. So the spectrum is anywhere from like Asperger's, really low on the spectrum, all the way to, of course, severely autistic. If you know somebody with Asperger's, you might sometimes describe them as just socially awkward, right? Sometimes they might say things and they don't realize they're hurting your feelings. They might be very rigid in what they want to do, and they don't always take the recommendations of what someone else wants to do. You know, they may not be flexible in their behaviors. Of course, severely autistic, we often describe these kids as just in their own world. There's just no social interaction. There's no, even down to perhaps no eye contact, no communication, right? They may not be verbal even. They don't ask questions to other people. They're just in their own world. And it's not that they don't want to engage, they just don't take that perspective. They don't understand. I don't want to say they don't understand, but they don't understand, or they don't consider that you have a different, you know, mind. And so they can be very rigid in what they want to do. You know, they don't understand if somebody else is sitting at their table. They don't understand, you know, that they can't wear the red shirt today because it's dirty or whatever it may be. Why do we have autism? You know, we have had a huge increase in autism over the years. I think the number one, oops, it's not there. The number one reason or cause or correlation that we're seeing right now is age of father. Increased paternal age is really correlating highly with the chance of having a child on the spectrum. There is also some research about the mom's immune system when she's pregnant with the child. Moms who were hospitalized for one reason or another, and then there was another study, and we're talking hundreds of thousands of people, where the mom had the herpes. And it wasn't that the herpes caused it, but what they think is that the mom's immune response in some way could be affecting or causing autism. There is no connection between vaccines and autism. They, for 15 years now, hundreds of studies, and of course, just the main one, the guy came out and said that he faked it all, made it up anyways. But I just, you know, really, there is no correlation with autism and vaccines, and we need to start spending our time focusing on what is the true cause rather than constantly having to go back over the old things that have been discredited by now. But there is some good treatments for autism. The number one thing right now out there is early childhood intervention. The sooner you can get this child into therapy, it's almost been as if you have like a reversal of the disorder. So therapy is very intense. A lot of like, they lift the child's head, they're constantly making eye contact, asking them questions, having them talk. You know, autistic kids can do some like repetitive behaviors like hand flapping or slapping and things like that. So they're constantly, you know, grabbing their hands, putting them down, lifting their head, asking them questions, things like looking at faces to see if they can identify the emotions in a person's face. And so very intense therapy, which is very recommended though, first, if you believe somebody's on the spectrum. Also, usually autism, some people say it's diagnosed around 2 or 3, and they might say, no, my child was fine before, but then at age 2, they switched. There is research now that we can see autism from very, very early on, tiny babies. They use eye tracking software, and the babies do not look at faces the same as non-autistic children do. So, you know, there's some early signs and indicators that children are autistic from the beginning, and just that the parents maybe didn't pick up on some of those subtle signs that were there, and they think that it was discovered when they were 2 because the child wasn't talking. Nonverbal at age 2 does not necessarily mean they're autistic, but that is certainly a red flag that they might want to check out for why that child is not verbal at that time. Okay. That is the end of that slide. And look at that, we're right within an hour, yay. Does anybody have any questions or comments over this chapter? No? All right. So just to reiterate, if anybody has any questions or any comments or concerns about the exam, missing the exam, not taking the second attempt of the exam, anything along those lines, please email me. I will download this video and probably have to put it up on YouTube, but I will put the link there for you on our Blackboard page. And if nobody has any questions, that's it. I wish you all a great rest of the week, and stay safe and warm and healthy and all that stuff. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, all right, well then I'm gonna stop sharing and I'll start shutting it down. Thank you guys, I appreciate you.